no.
When you've got a really effective horror story going, you can get people scared of mundane, largely safe things. Psycho made you afraid to take a shower. Jaws made you afraid to go to the ocean. A Nightmare on Elm Street made you afraid to go to sleep. Sometimes this is an incidental effect, and sometimes the creators are trying to do it on purpose. Stephen Moffat totally wanted young Doctor Who viewers to be scared of statues when he wrote Blink. I imagine then that there are some secret challenges in the horror author community to see who can make readers scared of the dumbest, least scary thing possible. And I guess it was R.L. Stine's turn to take the challenge. I wonder if he picked the subject matter himself, or some writer friend of his looked around his house, pointed at a kitchen sponge and went, "Make a scary book about that." Because yes, this is a book about an evil kitchen sponge. Oh, you don't have to tell me, Stine. After 2 weeks, my kitchen sponges all turn evil. The Merton family is moving to a new house. We've got Mom and Dad, older sister Kat, who's our narrator, younger brother Daniel, and their Cocker Spaniel Killer. Now, in 99% of all children's media, moving to a new house is a source of anxiety and worry. Not this time, because the Mertons have only moved down 3 blocks. Same friends, same school, easy peasy. And the house is really cool. It's big, 3 whole stories, a huge yard. It's old, there's balconies going every which way, and it's not even haunted. You gotta love the real estate bubble. Kat and Daniel goof off while unpacking until Killer brings their attention to something under the sink. It's a sponge. Okay, whatever. But when Kat gives it a closer look, she realizes it's moving a little, like it's breathing, like it's alive. Kat and Daniel fight over ownership of the sponge until Daniel bangs his head and gets a nasty bump. It was pretty much his own fault, but he blames Kat for it. Well, that's hardly fair, but sibling's gonna sibling. However, when Kat takes a closer look at the sponge, she discovers 2 tiny black eyes. Holy crap, this is really some kind of animal, something alive. She rushes to show her dad, who's on a ladder fixing a light, but before she can get a chance to, the ladder starts to tilt, and Dad takes a fall. He's fine, but is a little freaked out because he saw Kat push the ladder, even though she clearly didn't, and the sponge is throbbing, which is a gross thing to say. Kat doesn't get into any serious trouble, which is surprising. If I thought my kid was trying to murder me, I'd at least cut their allowance. Since a connection between it and Dad's accident, Kat throws the sponge away. It's a Tuesday, by the way, and in 4 days it's going to be Kat's 12th birthday, which is a massive birthday party planned at Wonder Park, a combination amusement park and water park. 2 days later, Kat is in her room working on schoolwork when Daniel and his friend Carlo... I know that's a real name, but come on, Carl or Carlos? You gotta pick one, you can't stick in the middle. Daniel and Carlo show up with the sponge, having dug it out of the trash. The kids puzzle over it some more. We have some standard trying to scare each other shenanigans because R.L. Stine really seems to think that's all children do. And then... But before Carlo and Daniel got out of the bedroom door, a scream made me nearly jump to the ceiling. I turned to see Carlo hopping frantically up and down on one foot. Carlo, his face twisted in pain, pointed wildly to his foot. Falling back onto the bed with a groan, he yanked off his sneaker. Blood oozed through his white sock. "A nail!" he gasped. "I stepped on a nail!" Ooh, ouchie, ouchie, ouchie. Violence is present in most Goosebumps books, but actually drawing blood is not. And it sets up the threat here as an almost exclusively violent one. The evil sponge isn't here to haunt you, it's here to beat the shit out of you. Though Carlo doesn't blame Kat for the nails, so things are already becoming inconsistent. Kat never gets blamed for things she didn't do again, so that element is just gone. What follows is a string of violent bad luck wherever Kate goes. She takes the sponge to one of her teachers to ask about it, but the sponge is good at being still and dry whenever an adult is in the room. A few minutes later, the teacher accidentally slams her fingers in a drawer, probably breaking them. At this point, Daniel is also convinced that the sponge is something weird and nasty, so he goes to the library and finds a book on mythical creatures, where he discovers an entry for a sponge-like creature called the Gruel. The Gruel does not eat food or drink water. Instead, it gets its strength from luck. Bad luck. The Gruel has always been known as a bad luck charm. It feeds on the bad luck of other people. The Gruel becomes stronger each time something bad happens around it. Bad luck for the Gruel owner never ends. The Gruel cannot be killed by force or by any violent means, and it cannot ever be given away or tossed aside. A Gruel is only passed on to a new owner when an owner dies. Anyone who gives the Gruel away will die within 1 day. Oh, so it's a lot like a subscription to Columbia House. That's all the information the book gives, but it seems accurate enough. Also, there's another entry for a potato with teeth called the Lanx, but I'm sure that's not important. So the Gruel has been identified, but there's no clue as to what to do with it. The bad luck continues. Killer has disappeared. He seems to have run away from the house. In her fear and frustration, Kat starts to throw the Gruel around and slams her hand against the desk, but doesn't see the scissors and slices her hand open pretty graphically for a kid's book. The Gruel just shakes it off and occasionally changes color to mock her. But it's Kat's birthday tomorrow. Maybe some fun in the sun will help lift their spirits, and it's raining. While that is bad luck, I'll admit I was pretty disappointed by this turn. Could you imagine the final destination hijinks we could get into at an amusement park? The Gruel would go nuts. Super upset, Kat proceeds to bury the Gruel in the backyard with Daniel's help. For all their rib poking, Kat and Daniel are pretty much on the same page here. They both now believe the Gruel is dangerous and are working together to defeat it. They're reassuring each other through their fears, and it's actually pretty nice to see. But burying it doesn't work, because the next morning all the grass and flowers in the backyard have died. So, no luck there. Then we get a filler scene so pointless and inconsequential that the Goosebumps wiki doesn't even bother mentioning it in the book summary. Aunt Louise is visiting. Aunt Louise is my favorite aunt. Even though she's a grown-up, she's completely cool. She wears long, flowery dresses and drives a bright yellow convertible. And Aunt Louise blows the biggest bubblegum bubbles, and she knows a lot of really funny jokes. Mom says Aunt Louise has her head in the clouds. I guess that means she has a wild imagination. No, Kat, it means your Aunt Louise smokes a lot of weed with her boyfriend Ensley. Aunt Louise is into astrology and tarot cards, you know, an anti-vaxxer. So Kat asks her if she knows anything about Gruels. Aunt Louise says no. And that's it. Nothing bad happens to the aunt. We don't learn anything new about the Gruel. It's a complete waste of time that takes up 2 whole chapters. Things don't pick up until one day when Carlo steals the Gruel for reasons. This book came out a year before Pokemon Carlo. Capturing monsters isn't the in thing yet. Kat and Daniel chase him down and discover Carlo's crashed his bike into a tree. Apparently he was racing his bike against some bully kids, and the Gruel did his bad luck stuff, and now Carlo's bike is ruined. Also, the Gruel is missing, and Kat is panicking. The book said if Kat doesn't possess the Gruel within 24 hours, she will die. No, wait, hang on. That's not what it said. It said if she gave away the Gruel, she would die in 24 hours. Okay, I bring this up for 2 reasons. One, as we'll see later, this is the kind of story where exact wording is key. The Creature book gave very specific details, and one of them was, don't give it away. It says nothing about having someone take it without their knowledge, or accidentally losing it, or throwing it away. It implies that the Gruel will come back, but nothing about those specific situations are implied to be fatal. And that's important for another reason, because Kat already threw the Gruel away after her dad fell off the ladder, where it was out of her possession for 2 whole days, 48 hours. She still seems pretty alive to me. And what about the burying it plan? She wasn't worried about dying then. Kat and Daniel search for the Gruel, including an extended scene of Kat going into a storm drain and being scared by some animal. I don't know, something, but it fills a few chapters. Then they decide to track down the bully kids and see if they picked it up, and they have, and they won't give it back, but then one of them gets beamed in the head with a baseball, probably cracking his skull open. That's the level we're on today. And our protagonist managed to snatch the Gruel back. Hooray! We're still slaves! Nothing will kill the Gruel. they can't smash it, they can't cut it, they can't blend it in a garbage disposal. But then Kat goes over the text about the Gruel again, where it says that the Gruel cannot be defeated by force or violent means. So she changes up her tactics. I forced myself to stroke the Gruel lovingly. I hugged the slimy thing and cuddled it in my arms as I would a soft puppy. I cooed in its ear. Little Gruel, cute Gruel, you are so nice, so sweet, so wonderful. I love you, Gruel. The Gruel's violent throbbing had slowed to a gentle pulse. I sang some more, softly, gently, sweetly, and we all watched in amazement as the Gruel's color faded, from red to pink and finally back to its ordinary dull brown color. Now check this out, I announced to Daniel and Carlo. I raised the wrinkled sponge to my face and planted a big fat kiss on it. Ah! The sponge let out a long, slow sigh and shrank into a tiny ball. I took a deep breath and blew. The tiny ball flew apart. Dry brown puffs floated into the air. Aww, you ripped off the ending of Ernest Scared Stupid. Yes, the Gruel is defeated by the power of love. Choked to death on positive energy. Not long after, Killer returns. Hooray, the dog is okay. And look, he's got something. It's a potato with teeth. Anyway, the book is over. This is a pretty slight book, but I would put it in the top percentile of Goosebumps stories. Its main gimmick isn't really the sponge. The Gruel could have been anything. A cursed pair of penny loafers, an evil balloon monster, whatever. No, the real gimmick here is just how far R.L. Stine tries to push that ages 8 to 12 violence. We had some gore in Welcome to Deadhouse, but that was happening to ghost monsters. And the evil scientist guy died of fright in Say Cheese and Die, but the protagonist didn't even see that. But we've never had so much violence inflicted against normal people before in Goosebumps. Blood is spilled multiple times in this story. Bones are broken. People take nasty falls. It's unprecedented for this series. It's the novelty of violence that makes this book stand out. Otherwise, it did feel kind of flat. There's no real sense of escalation, and there's too much filler for a book that barely exceeds 110 pages. It was nice to see Kat and Daniel working together, but Carlo stealing the Gruel for no good reason feels less like the stakes being raised and more like someone trying to jumpstart the plot. It just doesn't have a lot of momentum. Bad things happen to this girl, and she just kinda has to sit and take it. But there's, nothing majorly wrong with this book. I don't really have a lot of rewrite notes, just minor adjustments to tighten things up. I think the Gruel's methods should have been a bit more cemented. The book starts with the Gruel framing Kate for accidents around the house, like Dad's fall, but then it just stops doing that. Its powers all seem to inflict harm, except for that one time that it just made it rain. Clean this stuff up, cut the filler, use that extra space to have the Gruel run rampant in the amusement park like you were setting up. That would have been way more fun to read. But as it is, the book still makes its point, which is Goosebumps ain't afraid to cut a kid. Does it make sponges scary? That's arguable, but as a mission statement for R.L. Stine, it reads loud and clear. I don't always hurt my child protagonists, he says, but I'm not afraid to fuck them up when the time comes for it. I give It Came From Beneath the Sink some nunchucks out of 10.